everybody, Mountain Grandma here, and today I'm going to share with you 3 recipes for some amazing treats in a jar that make the perfect gift. And these are great to give to anybody who has kids because you're not just giving them a jar to make cookies, you're giving them a memory to create with the children. So I love this gift, I love this as a gifting idea. And I also love to have these in my pantry for that very same reason. So let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to kick it off with this chunky chocolate cookie mix. Let's go. All right, so the first thing you want to do is get your jars out. And I am making 3 of each one of these. And you also, when I give you the ingredients, you want to make sure that you add them in the order that they are shared in the recipe. And as you can see, we're starting with 1 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And right at this point, you kind of want to level your jars out a little. I forgot to do that until until the next 2 ingredients. But I also added in 1/2 teaspoon of the baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of the salt. So you're kind of seeing me do that here. And then after you get your baking soda and your salt added in, you want to go ahead and add in 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. So you'll see me doing that next. You can start to see the beginning of a really pretty pattern here as we add these ingredients in. For this particular recipe, you don't need to put anything in the jar to pack down your ingredients as we add them to the jar because there's plenty of room, but sometimes you do need to do that. After the brown sugar, we're going to add in 1/3 cup of regular sugar. Feel free to use an alternative sweetener like monk fruit sweetener or something, or, you know, 1/2 and 1/2 of each. I like to do that. So 1/3 cup of sugar or alternative sweetener here. And then after this, we're going to add in 1 cup of chocolate chips. I have a blend of my chocolate chips too. I blend the Swerve chocolate chips with the regular chocolate chips to kind of cut some of the sugar down there. I really like the Swerve chocolate chips too. Those taste really good. And I'm doing 1 cup of the regular chocolate chips. You would want to do 1 1/3 cups if you were doing chunks. And then lastly, I'm adding in pecans. The recipe calls for 1 cup of chopped pecans, but I just kind of eyeballed some chopped pecans in there. Feel free to modify that as as your family likes and prefers. And then what you see me doing, last thing here is I'm using my vacuum sealer to vacuum seal all of these jars just so that they'll have a better shelf life. And these will last 6 months to a year, as long as each of the individual ingredients last, pretty much. You can think about it like that. And then all decorated up. Here we go. Aren't those adorable? I absolutely love them. All right, on to the next one. All right, so the next thing we're going to be making is the double fudge brownie mix. You see that here. And we're going to start out the same as before with clean, empty, quart-sized jars. And we're going to add in 1 1/2 cups of sugar to each jar to get started. And then on top of that, we're going to add in 3/4 of a cup of cocoa. Now, here's a tip for you. You don't see me doing it because I forgot. But whenever you're adding in cocoa powder to any treat in a jar recipe, you want to get a paper towel and go into the jar and wipe the jar walls off above the cocoa, because that powder dusts the jar walls above it. And what happens is when you put in your next ingredient, it won't have as crisp of a line. See how crisp that line is between sugar and the cocoa powder? It's a nice crisp line there. Well, watch, when I add in the flour, it's not so crisp. It's kind of hazy, I guess you could say, because the cocoa powder has dusted the walls of the jar. So it's not a big deal. It doesn't mess anything up. I think it still looks good and still looks yummy and all of that stuff. But if you want to have a cleaner wall of a jar, make sure that you use a paper towel. Just go in there and wipe the wall of the jar above the cocoa before you put the next layer in. So after the 3/4 cup of flour, we're also adding in 3/4 a cup of chocolate chips here. And you see me doing that. And if your family likes walnuts or pecans, you could also add on top of the chocolate chips, you could add in a 1/2 cup of chopped nuts also. You're not seeing me do that, but that's something that you could certainly do. And then, like I did before, you need to use your vacuum sealer and go ahead and vacuum seal these jars. So that way it helps, the longevity of the shelf life for you. And then you can get them all decorated up however you want to decorate those up. And this is another recipe that I think is pretty universal. Like everybody loves a good brownie, right? So there we go, another great treat in a jar. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, and next up is the oatmeal raisin bar mix. This could also be an oatmeal raisin cookie. Either way, the directions in the card are going to share how to make the oatmeal raisin bars, but it could totally be a drop cookie. We're going to start as we did before. We've got 3 clean quart-sized jars. To each of these, we are adding 3/4 a cup of brown sugar. I want to give you a tip here. Right here, what I should have done was pack the brown sugar into the jar. Like push a measuring cup down in there, whatever you got to kind of push that brown sugar down and compact that. I did not do that, and you'll see why you need to as we move along. After the 3/4 cup of brown sugar, I've added 1/2 cup of sugar. And now what you see me adding is 3/4 cup of raisins. And again, pack these things down in between layers. You're almost to the point where you're going to see why. And now I'm adding in 2 cups of old-fashioned oats. You could also use quick oats. I don't think it makes much of a difference, but add those 2 cups of oats into your jar and pack it down. And as you could see, at this point, I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't pack my ingredients. How am I going to get 1 more cup of flour in here? So then you're going to have to pack everything down. So then you'll see I've packed the other 2 jars down. See how full this is? With that 1 cup of flour in there. You don't want to have that happen to you. So remember, pack in between your layers. After your 2 cups of oats, what you're going to add in next is 1 cup of flour. And you'll need to pack that down really well. And then on top of the flour, you're going to add in 3 more ingredients, though they're small ones, so they'll fit. And that is 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg and 1 teaspoon of baking soda and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, with this particular recipe, I had my jars so full that I couldn't use my vacuum sealer on them. It just wouldn't work. So keep that in mind when you're doing that these jars, if you don't pack them down, you're not going to be able to vacuum seal them. So keep that in mind. But otherwise, it's a beautiful jar and another wonderful treat that your family and friends will love. So, and here it is, all decorated up. And now let's see what we got here. We've got 9 jars of treats for gifting or for your pantry or both, right? And they are all beautiful. They've got directions right on them. This is a wonderful gift idea. I hope you all will try it. And thank you to Tina at Life in the Piedmont for inviting me to join in on this collaboration. I hope you all will go check out the playlist and all the other content creators' videos that are being shared this month. Until I see you next time, everybody, remember, keep your joy, folks.